Today I'm checking out Seismic Bass Suite from the Modern Metal Songwriter. First up, I've got a full mix demo, and then we're going to head over to the plugin and check out all the many different features and pedals that this amp has. Subscribe to my channel. One thing that immediately grabbed my attention with this plugin is that the pedal board is so familiar. I use a very similar setup on my bass pedal board when I play live with my band. I've got the bass Big Muff. I've used that for years live. Not currently, but I am currently using a B3K, Dark Glass B3K clone that I built, which is what this is. This is the B7K. So I've got a very similar preamp to both of these. I also have used the Sans Amp bass driver in the past and currently have a compressor on my board as well. So these are all pedals that I've used live and what I've found works really well for bass in a metal context. So I had to review this, and it's a really cool plugin. The centerpiece is the Seismic Bass Amp, and this has 3 different frequency ranges with adjustable compression in each of those, and each of them has 3 different amp models or a DI that you can use for each of those frequency ranges. So you can mix and match amps for different frequency ranges. That's pretty cool. It's a unique feature that I haven't seen anywhere else, so that's fun. And we've got an equalizer, a couple different equalizers here. In the post effects, we've got a chorus pedal and a 10-band EQ. And I'm not sure, but down the road, I can imagine that this modulation pedal, which currently is just chorus, might also include some other variations because you could easily have a menu here, and that's what it looks like. But currently, it's just a chorus pedal. Maybe we'll see more added to it. In the cabinet section, we have a 115 and a 410. Again, exactly what I use live. I have a combination of a 410 and a 115, and we've got 5 different mic options here with a Beta 52, a 421, a Fathead ribbon, a U47, and a sub kick, which is kind of like a microphone that's also a giant speaker. First of all, let's get tuned up, and we do have a tuner right here. So you can see that the tuner automatically mutes when the window is open. We've also got a noise gate here, And one complaint with this is that I have to set the threshold all the way up, and I am running some gain on the preamp of my interface as well. I wish the threshold on this gate was calibrated a little differently, but other than that, it does work and sounds fine. There's another extra master EQ you can use that's a parametric EQ, so that's a handy feature to have. Let's go through the different amp models here, and I'll set all the bands to the same thing. So there's our 3 different amp models, and there's more we can do with it. So let's take number 2 here. This one sounded fairly clean, but we can push it and distort it here. We've got gain knobs for each of the section, which will push the amp harder, and then we've got a compressor section, so we can dial in the amount of multiband compression we want. Let's try mixing and matching some of the different amps. So just with that, you have a lot of flexibility with your tone, and we can also change the cutoff point for each of these sections. So quite flexible with just the amp. Let's take a listen now to some of the different cabs. Now, my only complaint here is that there's no SM57, which is not maybe a necessity for a bass amp, but I always like to have a 57. It's just a great standard. So that was the 410. Here is the 115. And if we really want just excessive bass, we can use the sub-kick mic. So let's do a little blend now with both cabs. I'm going with the 52 on the 410 and the fat ribbon on the 115, 75% towards the 410 cab. So I think that's a good cab sound. So I'm going to set the amp a little cleaner now, and then we're going to play around with some of the distortions in the pre-effects. Here's the bass big muff, and this is kind of how I like to set it up usually live. Let's see if it works. So it definitely captures the fuzz thing. I don't know how it compares exactly. I haven't tested out against the real pedal, but it does a pretty good job of emulating that. And it does have the different modes here. So we do have a bass boost mode, which I almost never, well, I never use. I would like to blend it with a line splitter. So I would have just a dry signal and the wet bass signal, big muff signal that I could blend together. But if you don't have something like that where you can control the ratio, you can just set the dry mode, and then I think it's about 50-50 dry and wet blend. You can use the volume control to kind of change the amount of the wet signal in proportion to the dry. Next up, we've got the Seismic Amp bass driver. This is a pretty classic pedal that every bassist should probably own. They're handy, and it's a good utility because you can also use it as a DI box or as an extra output for sending a DI to front of house. So it's got a blend knob here. This controls the dry-wet blend of the pedal effect. So you can blend in your unaffected tone. We've got a drive knob that's self-explanatory. This is not really a high-gain pedal, but it can get crunchy. And then this is kind of like the later versions of the bass driver that have the mid, and it's got a selectable mid shift and a bass shift. So the original bass driver just had treble, bass, and presence. The mid version is even more expensive. Yeah, so that's a cool pedal, and that on its own is a great foundation for any number of tones. The compressor here has FET and VCA modes, and VCA is going to be probably faster and more transparent. FET might be a little more characterful. Yeah, so if you're using this just with other pedals and you want just kind of a little extra compression, not for an effect, probably VCA mode is the way to go. But if you want more of a heavy compression effect that you actually hear, the FET mode is a little more interesting. We've also got 2-to-1, 4-to-1, and 10-to-1 ratios that are selectable there. And then we've got this big pedal here, which is the B7K. That's the dark glass preamp. This, similar to the Sans amp, It's kind of a modern take on that with a lot of options here. It's got a cool CMOS-based distortion. It's a modern classic here in digital form. If you want that modern metal djenty sound, that's the pedal to go for. You want the dark class. That's where that tone came from, and here it is. And this is the version that has a lot of different options. So like this grunt switch, you can use this like I did here to boost the bass before the distortion circuit. Makes it a little messier, a little fuzzier kind of, or you can cut the bass, make it extra, just grindy. Same with the attack. It's a high shelf. You can boost or cut before the distortion, and that just gives you different characters for the treble and how it affects the distortion. We could try cutting the bass and boosting the treble before the distortion. That would be a very extreme djent sound. It's a little much for my taste, but the options are there. So with just these pedals, you can really go from a doomy fuzz tone to a modern djent tone. You can't move the pedals visually, but up top, we can switch the order they are in the chain. So you could put the compressor first or put the overdrive before the fuzz, whatever you like. Back on the amp, we covered the main window here, but we also do have a little graphic equalizer here. There's an enhance knob here, and it's just got preset EQ curves you can use to further dial in your tone. There's also a quake knob, which I think just adds extra sub frequencies. I can't even really hear the difference on these headphones, but they don't go down low enough, I suppose, to really hear that. With a subwoofer, you might hear a big difference. We also have a 3-band EQ here. It's pretty standard, but we also have these buttons up top, which are just sort of a tweak to the frequency, kind of a preset enhancement to that frequency band, which you can just toggle on off and see if you like it or not. The last thing to look at is the chorus pedal. a great sounding chorus, sounds cool on bass. It's very powerful, so I would probably keep the width and the rate knob pretty low. And then we do have a balance knob, which is our dry wet blend. So that's really all there is to this. It's quite a lot. It's quite an expansive plugin, and it's really got everything you need, and you could get pretty much any bass tone you could ever want with it. So I really like this plugin. I don't have any real complaints. More cab options, more mic options for the cabs would always be welcome, but I think what they have is quite good and really covers anything you could generally need. The gate is the only thing that I kind of dislike because the threshold range, I think, is just a little off. And if that was tweaked a bit, then that would be great. But you can also use your own noise gate in front. The UI is good. It is resizable. Now, it's not freely resizable, but we do have lots of options for the UI size. You can also turn on oversampling. It doesn't say how much, but it is there in the options. Since the modulation pedal looks like it has a menu here, I do wonder and perhaps hope that maybe there'll be some addition there, like a phaser or something. Not that I really use a whole lot of bass effects, or most people do, but chorus is probably the best choice. But it looks like a menu, so I kind of feel like maybe there will be some other options in the future. I think it really covers huge ground. I guess it's a bit complicated just because it's kind of a unique amp that with the multi-band, different frequencies, different amp blending, and different compression you can add there. It's maybe not the most beginner-friendly bass amp suite, but for the advanced bass player who really wants to carve the ultimate tone, this is just a great setup for that. And if you want something simple, there are plenty of other plugins that will give you a good, simple bass tone without mucking about, which is also valuable. But sometimes you want to play around, you want to have options, and you want to get creative with it. And this allows you to make any kind of bass tone you could really want, whether it's vintage and clean, or a modern, grindy, clanky tone, or something big and fuzzy. It's really got it all. I hope you've enjoyed this, and as always, I encourage you to smash like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video.